If you're watching this in June and thinking it's already too late to plant anything worth having this summer, I need you to stop right there. Because that thought has cost more gardeners more years of beautiful gardens than almost any other mistake I know. Yes, spring is the classic planting window. Yes, April and May get all the attention. But here's what those spring planting guides never tell you. June planted perennials that are specifically chosen for summer toughness, the right ones, often establish better than spring plantings because they go straight into warm soil, skip the cold shock period, and never have to wait around for conditions to improve. The key word is chosen. Not every perennial can handle a June planting, but the 9 I'm about to show you, they were practically built for it. These are the plants that laugh at heat, that get better the more you ignore them, that come back every single year, tougher and more beautiful than before. And you can plant every single one of them right now, this week, this weekend, today if you want to. Stay with me because plant number 7 is the one that experienced gardeners call the most underrated perennial in existence. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly why. Let's get into it. Before we get into the plants, one thing I want you to understand, because it will change how you think about everything else in this video. The biggest risk with June planting isn't heat. It's the first 2 weeks. Any perennial you plant in June needs consistent moisture for the first 14 days to establish its root system. After that, and this is the part I love, most of these plants become genuinely drought tolerant. They stop needing you. So here's the deal. Water well for 2 weeks. Then step back and let them do their thing. That's the entire care requirement for most of what's on this list. Now, let's talk about the plants. If there is one plant that was genuinely designed for June planting and summer neglect, it is this one. Echinacea evolved on the North American prairie. Not in a pampered garden, not in rich, amended soil with regular irrigation. On the open prairie, baking heat, poor soil, months without meaningful rain. That is the environment this plant calls home, which means when you plant it in June and forget about it for 3 weeks, it shrugs. When August hits and everything else in your garden looks tired, Echinacea is still going, still blooming, still pulling in butterflies and bees like nothing else in the border. The flowers are those iconic daisy-like blooms with the distinctive raised spiky orange-brown center, in purple, pink, white, coral, red, and yellow, depending on variety. They open in early summer and keep going all the way through fall. Then, if you leave the seed heads standing through winter, birds feed on them all season. One plant earns its space for 12 months of the year. The secret most people miss. Echinacea performs dramatically better in poor, lean soil than in rich beds. If you amend the planting area with compost, you'll get taller, floppier plants that need staking. Planted in ordinary or even slightly sandy soil and it stands upright, blooms harder and lives longer. The neglect is not a compromise, it's the method. Hardy in zones 3 through 9, one of the most adaptable perennials on the planet. This is the plant that makes neighborhoods stop and stare in July and August. Those bright golden yellow flowers with the bold dark center are cheerful, vivid and impossible to ignore. And they bloom exactly when most spring flowers have finished, midsummer through fall, which means Rudbeckia fills the most important gap in the seasonal garden calendar. Here's why it's perfect for June planting. Rudbeckia doesn't just tolerate heat, it peaks in heat. The hotter your summer, the more it blooms. Plant it now, and by late July you'll have a display that looks like it's been there for years. It self-seeds generously. Let a few seed heads stand at the end of the season, and next spring you'll have new plants coming up around the parent. Completely free, completely unplanned, completely beautiful. The secret? Most people deadhead Rudbeckia constantly to keep the blooms coming. Here's the smarter approach. Deadhead the first half of summer to maximize the bloom count. Then stop deadheading in August. The seed heads that form in September attract goldfinches and sparrows that will visit your garden through the entire winter. You get a bird feeder for free. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. Virtually indestructible. This is the one that almost nobody outside of experienced gardeners knows about. And after this video, that changes for you. Agastache looks like it belongs in a Tuscan garden. Tall, upright spikes of tubular flowers in vivid orange, deep purple, coral pink or soft blue held above aromatic mint-scented foliage. It blooms from midsummer all the way through fall, one of the longest bloom seasons of any perennial on this list. And it is genuinely almost indestructible in the right conditions. It wants full sun and well-draining soil. It handles heat better than almost anything. It handles drought once established without complaint. In fact, the drier and hotter the summer, the better Agastache performs. But here's what makes it truly special. Hummingbirds. That tubular flower shape is precisely designed for hummingbird feeding. Plant Agastache and hummingbirds will visit your garden consistently from the moment it blooms until the first frost. Bees and butterflies mob it too. Your garden becomes a wildlife spectacle with zero effort on your part. The secret: Agastache is a short-lived perennial, typically 3 to 5 years, but it self-seeds reliably in most climates. Let a few stems stand at the end of the season and you'll have seedlings coming up nearby next spring. The original plant ages out, but the garden keeps going. Hardy in zones 5 through 10 depending on variety. Blue Fortune and Kudos Coral are among the toughest. And I want to flag something before we go further. Plants 5 and 7 on this list are the two that I get the most questions about in the comments. Not because they're hard, because once people discover them, they can't believe they waited this long. Plant 7 especially. I'll tell you exactly what makes it so different when we get there. Keep going. One clarification that matters. This is perennial Salvia, not the annual bedding Salvia you see in garden centres every spring. Annual Salvia dies. This comes back every year, gets bigger, and blooms harder. Perennial Salvia sends up those tall, elegant spikes of deep violet blue, rich purple, or soft pink in early summer. And here's the part that sets it apart from almost everything else on this list. Cut it back by 1/3 after the first flush of blooms, and it comes back with a full second round of flowers in late summer. 2 full seasons of colour from one planting in a single year. It handles heat without flinching. It's drought-tolerant once established. Deer avoid it because of the aromatic foliage. The same oils that make it fragrant to us make it completely unattractive to deer. And pollinators absolutely swarm it. Bumblebees, honeybees and butterflies visit perennial Salvia constantly throughout its bloom season. The secret: May Night and Caradonna are the 2 most reliable varieties for this reason. They rebloom the most consistently after cutting back. If you buy a generic perennial Salvia without a named variety, you may not get that second flush. Spend the extra minute at the garden centre to find a named variety. It's worth it. Hardy in zones 4 through 9. This is the first of the 2 plants I mentioned that tends to stop people in their tracks. Liatris does something no other perennial on this list does. It grows as a tall, vertical spike, 2 to 4 feet high, covered in fluffy, vivid, purple magenta flowers. But instead of opening from bottom to top like most flowering spikes, Liatris opens from the top down. It's a small detail that creates a disproportionate visual impact. In a garden full of mounding, spreading plants, Liatris stands upright like a purple exclamation point. It blooms in midsummer and holds its colour for weeks. Monarchs and swallowtails love it. Goldfinches eat the seeds in autumn. And it grows from a corm, a small underground bulb-like structure, which means it's extraordinarily drought-tolerant once established. The corm stores water and energy that the plant draws on during hot, dry spells. Plant it in June in full sun, well-draining soil, and then leave it completely alone. It will take care of itself. The secret: Liatris actually performs worse when you water it too frequently. The corm is adapted to dry conditions, and consistently wet soil can cause it to rot. Plant it, water it for the first 2 weeks to establish, then back off completely. Benign neglect is not just acceptable here, it's optimal. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. If you have a spot that's too hot, too sunny, and too dry for anything else, Sedum will not just survive there, it will look stunning. Sedum is a succulent perennial, which means it stores water in its thick, fleshy leaves and stems. It can go 3 weeks without rain in the middle of August and look completely unbothered. Plant it in June, water it twice while it settles in, and then you're done. Summer maintenance requirement: 0. The larger varieties, like Autumn Joy and Matrona, produce broad, flat flower clusters that go through a beautiful progression across the season. They start as dusty pink buds in late summer, deepen to rose, then to rich rust red through autumn, and eventually dry into copper-coloured seed heads that look architectural well into winter. This is a plant that earns its space in 4 distinct seasons. Very few perennials can say that. The secret: Sedum is one of the most important late-season pollinator plants in existence. By September and October, when almost every other flower has finished, Sedum is still providing nectar. Bees that are building up winter reserves swarm it. If supporting pollinators through the whole season matters to you, and if you're watching this channel, it probably does, Sedum at the back of a sunny border is essential, not optional. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. Here's the plant I mentioned, and here's why it gets so many comments. Catmint, Nepeta, does something that sounds too good to be true until you see it in your own garden. It forms dense, billowing mounds of soft lavender blue flowers over silvery green aromatic foliage. It blooms for weeks in early summer. It spills over path edges and border fronts in a way that looks like it took a professional garden designer years to perfect. And then you cut it back by a third, water it once, and within 2 to 3 weeks, it blooms again. A full second round of flowers in late summer, just as most other perennials are winding down. It's drought tolerant, it handles heat, it repels deer and aphids. Bees absolutely love it. It suppresses weeds with its dense foliage mat, and it looks beautiful from the moment it first opens until the first hard frost. The secret that makes designers look clever: Catmint is the single best front-of-border plant for the low-maintenance gardener. Planted along the edge of any garden bed, and it immediately softens hard lines, fills gaps, and makes the whole space look intentional. Even if it's the only thing you plant this season, Catmint alone will transform how your garden looks. One plant, real impact. Hardy in zones 3 through 8. If you want the longest, most reliable bloom season of any perennial on this list, with the least amount of effort, this is it. Coreopsis produces cheerful, daisy-like flowers in bright golden yellow, soft lemon, warm coral, and rich rose. It starts blooming in early summer and keeps going without pause all the way through September in most climates. That is 3 to 4 continuous months of colour from a plant that asks almost nothing in return. A full sun, well-draining soil, no fertiliser needed. It actually blooms less in overly rich conditions. Deadhead occasionally for the heaviest bloom, or don't bother and it still keeps going. It handles heat and drought without stress. It naturalizes beautifully, spreading slowly to fill gaps over the seasons. The secret: there are 2 main species and they behave differently. Coreopsis grandiflora is the showiest but shorter-lived. Coreopsis verticillata, varieties like Zagreb and Moonbeam, is more drought-tolerant, longer-lived, and reblooms more freely without deadheading. If you're in a hot, dry climate or you want the most hands-off option, seek out a verticillata variety. The difference in performance in tough conditions is significant. Hardy in zones 4 through 9. I know, 2 Rudbeckias on one list. But Goldsturm earns its own entry because it does something the standard species doesn't. Goldsturm is a specific named cultivar that's been selected for exceptional garden performance. It's more compact and uniform than the species, which means no staking, no flopping, no sprawl. It produces the same vivid golden yellow flowers with the dark centers, but in a denser, more architectural mound that holds its shape cleanly through the entire bloom season. It blooms from midsummer through fall, often continuing past the first light frosts. It handles heat and drought once established. It self-seeds gently, enough to gradually fill your bed over time without becoming invasive. But here's the thing that makes Goldsturm genuinely special. It peaks in late summer and early fall, exactly when most gardens look tired and spent. In September, when everything around it is winding down, a massive Goldsturm looks like it's just getting started. It carries the late season in a way very few plants can. The secret: plant Goldsturm in groups of 3 or 5, not singly. A single plant is pretty. 3 plants together is a statement. 5 plants is a display that makes people stop their car to ask what that plant is. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. Before I wrap up, I want to give you the one piece of advice that will determine whether your June planting succeeds or fails, regardless of which plants you choose. The single most common mistake with summer planting is overhead watering. Watering from above, with a sprinkler, a watering can tilted over the top, a hose sprayed at the leaves, promotes disease, especially in the heat, and wastes most of the water to evaporation before it ever reaches the roots. Water at the base, directly at the soil, slowly so it penetrates rather than runs off. For the first 2 weeks, do this every 2 to 3 days, in the early morning or evening. After that, most of the plants on this list are on their own. The roots have established. They know what to do. That's it. That's the whole care protocol. Quick recap so you have them all ready to go. 1. Echinacea. Purple coneflower, prairie tough, blooms all summer, feeds birds all winter. 2. Rudbeckia, black-eyed Susan. Golden summer colour, self-seeds, peak performer in August heat. 3. Agastache. Hummingbird mint. Tall spikes, incredible fragrance. Hummingbirds and bees can't resist it. 4. Salvia Nemorosa. Perennial Salvia. Cut it back once, get a second full bloom in late summer. 5. Liatris. Blazing star. Vertical purple spikes. Blooms top down, drought tolerant from its corm. 6. Sedum Stonecrop. Succulent tough, zero summer care needed. Gorgeous from August through winter. 7. Catmint. The designer's secret. 2 bloom rounds per season transforms any garden edge. 8. Coreopsis. 3 to 4 months of non-stop colour, the easiest bloom season on this list. 9. Rudbeckia Goldsturm. The late season champion. Peaks when everything else is done. 9 plants. Plant them this week, water for 2 weeks, then walk away and let them work. Here's what I want you to do right now before you close this video. Pick 2. Just 2 of these 9 plants. The ones that spoke to you, the ones that fit your space, or your situation. Write them down, or even better, drop them in the comments below. Tell me which 2 you're starting with. Because here's what I've watched happen with gardeners who make this shift, who go from annuals and constant replanting to tough, low-maintenance perennials. The experience of having a garden completely changes. It stops feeling like a chore you're always behind on. It starts feeling like something that works for you even when you're not there. That's what this channel is about every single week. Real plants, real results, for real people with real schedules. If today's video was useful, subscribe so you don't miss what's next. New videos go up every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. And if someone you know has been putting off their garden because they think it's too late or too hard, share this video with them. It might be exactly what they needed to hear. I'll see you in the next one.